Good morning, Kansas City. Thanks for joining us on another awesome episode of Life After KCPS, Real World Learning. My name is Chris Odam. I am the lucky participant that gets to host and interview so many young people turned adult from some of my experiences in the classroom and from some people that I've known. As this show is starting to grow a little bit and we're looking for different angles, we're going as far back as we can to meet people who have come from this district. And like as far back as I got so far, honestly, was like 1996. So I think today we're going to go back a little bit further in time than 96 and have this fantastic poet, artist, man, all around guy, great teacher, great professor, tell us a little bit about his path. So please welcome to Life After KCPS, the great poet, Stanley Banks. And right. Mr. Banks, if you would, take us back to those moments. You're a graduate of one of our schools. Tell us which one, tell us which year, and tell us a little bit about that year, like you were telling me just a moments ago.
Okay. Well, I graduated in 1979. And, it's like, wow, even saying that now seems so ancient, but but it was a curious time for me. Like I know most high school graduates, there's a little, kind of melancholy. There's a lot of confusion. And as I was telling you before, graduation was kind of so anticlimactic. There was, yes, the joy, but there was also like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I need to start whatever life I'm going to start. No time off to have some job that's a full-time job. If I want to get into something that's going to be lifelong, sustaining. So that was put into my head by my 11th grade. I had just a group of teachers who were incredible. I had I'll start with the gym teacher, and for everybody. It was one of those magical years for me because I was kind of lost. My grandmother, who had raised me, was beginning to get frail, and I knew she wasn't long for this world. And so my gym teacher, George Gurley, was a great mentor to talk to about stuff. I had a teacher who was my American history teacher, who took the time to tell me some stuff about Black history. Her name was J.P. Johnson. I had some, Mr. Herron was the principal of Southeast, William Herron. Mr. Rogers was the vice principal, still living, Mr. Rogers. And I had two super influential teachers that got me to become who I became, even though I didn't know I was going to become that person. My current affairs, I don't know if they even teach current affairs anymore, but her name was Miss Sandra Gale. She's 83 or something, and she's my buddy still today.
Awesome.
And we keep up. In her class, she allowed me to do this media stuff. Okay, now when I say media stuff, I mean like making slides and that kind of thing. Boy, we like Stone Age, right? We thought that was
It's come a little way since then, yeah.
Yeah, come a little way on a little projector.
Yeah.
And she allowed those of us who were responsible to leave the building, go out and make stories, and come back and report. And I started reading New York Times, with newspapers, and it was like my world blew up. It was like, wow, there's all this stuff going on? I literally wasn't paying attention to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miss Kazan, bless her heart, Carol Kazan, was my English and literature instructor, 2 classes. And she how great creative writing teachers, and I've tried to emulate her. She said, write something about your life. Now, that's one of those questions that just freezes you. Like, my life, what does that mean? Do I really want to say? So I started writing, and she was like, boy, you could be a really good poet. I'm like, literally, Chris, I'm like, what does that mean? I don't even know what a poet is. I really didn't at the time. I heard the words, but I'm like, what does a real poet do? So I got to be so good, my classmates started calling me the poet. I was not worthy.
Nah, I bet.
And then they made the mistake, Chris, of having me to write the prom poem. And by mistake, I mean, they said, put your real words in there. So I wrote the poem and I presented it to the committee, a couple of vice principals, a couple of teachers, Miss Kazan, and there was another person I can't remember. But they took me into this meeting. They said, Stan, this is a prom poem, remember? And your poem is a little hard. It's like, it's got some murder ideals in it. It's got some suicide thoughts in it. It's got some, it's really kind of bleak. And like, a prom poem is supposed to be upbeat, march on. They said, can you give us that? And I'm at that point, I'm, like first time writers, I'm really like protective of my work. I'm like, well, you all don't like this? And no, we like it. It's just not a prom poem.
Gotcha.
So my classmates, I always have them cracking up because I'm like, you all got the soft version of what I really wrote, right? And what I was thinking, I was introduced to Shakespeare. I was introduced to Langston Hughes. Yeah, I mean, it's like in 11th grade, we just get introduced to these people, to these great artists, these great figures in history, and forever, legends. And one thing I took away, we read Macbeth. I didn't have a clue what was going on until it's funny how you pull something out of Shakespeare, and I'm not going to get all in the weeds about this, but the great line, life is a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing, right? That line, literally, I always tell folks, that line hit me in the gut. I'm like, life is a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing. That dramatic scene toward the end. And I'm like, I'm that idiot in this. I'm like, I'm all over the place. I'm mad. I'm upset. What's the plan, Stan? What's your plan? What are you gonna do other than being mad or depressed? And a lot of kids get there, so they're like, oh God, I'm not gonna be the senior superstar, and next year after this, everybody's gonna be looking at me going, where you working? You got a job? And so that poem just kind of hit me. And at the same time, I read Langston Hughes' Harlem. And the title, most people don't even know the title, but it's the first line. That's all I had to read, and I was done. And it was like, what happens to a dream deferred? It's almost like these poems were speaking to me. And I'm like, wow, what do you want to do, Stan? Really, for the first time in a real serious way. That started in the 11th grade.
Right.
By the time the 12th grade came around, it was just refresher year. Half of my classmates, they hardly even showed up. I would come and I'd have conversations with the teacher about, well, what do you do to be a productive adult? Right? And Miss Kazan and Miss Gail, who even to this day is a great friend. I'm now a professor out at Avila University. Chris going on 25 years now.
Wow.
And we had the literary magazine that we publish is called Sound and Fury, right?
It used to be SCOP, right? Or
Yeah, it used to be
SCOP.
Scott.
Yeah,
There
I
you
remember
go.
that.
There you go.
I
And
remember.
I put a poem that I wrote for Miss Gail in there, right? Just to talk about, and then this poem is about how a great teacher just wakes up your imagination. And it's subtle. You can't go in and say, hey, I'm gonna make you do this and that. It's just by empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just by saying, what do you want? What do you hope for? And why is that tough for you?
Mm-hmm.
Give them time. And sooner or later, it just pours out. And that's what they did for me, because I come from a poor background, big family, everything you could think about, drug dealers, uh, prostitution, murderers, thieves. I always tell folks, look, I got relatives spending time in some of the best institutions in America, and that's penitentiaries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you say to yourself, is that my destiny? It's like, because I wasn't like the A student, and I always tell students, I wasn't that A student.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't that B+ student either. So, I always say, get a passion. And it just so happened I'm in college trying to figure what that was. And I'm still writing poetry because it became therapy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I met my editor, my friend, the great Dan Jaffe, who's no longer with us at UMKC.
Mm-hmm.
And my sophomore year, I'm in a class. I made it to my sophomore year, Chris. That was a miracle too. It was like all kind of stuff going on in the family, things happening, deaths, and this. I'm like, wow. And I kept my grandmother kept pushing me. She kept saying, hey, if it's good, if it's the right thing and good to be in college, then you need to be in college.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep on getting up and going. And didn't have the greatest first couple of semesters, but by the time the 10th grade, the sophomore year came, I'm in this poetry class with Dan Jaffe. And rest his soul, they used to call it, you about to get Jaffe eyes. Right? And they meant that as a put down.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it's writing poetry. I'm like, yeah, y'all not scaring me, right? So I saw the light, but I can still see you good.
That's strange. I'm not moving or something in this room.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
Dan had people write these personal poems. And he was kind of a professor. He would put it out there and he rip on it and riff at it and really get into the poem. And a lot of students took that personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gave them my poem. The first poem was about my grandmother. Who else? And he said, look, Stan, don't cry on the page. Mm-hmm. And that made sense to me. And then as he did with everybody, he said, now that doesn't hurt your feelings, does it? And I told him, honestly, this is where we became friends. I said, Dan, it's just a poem. It's like, I'm trying to make it better, so tear it up.
Yeah.
I'm like, tear it up. And he was like, after that semester, I made an A in that class, and he presented me to become the managing editor of Number One, the literary magazine at UMKC. And then I became the editor-in-chief.
Nice.
And so, I found my passion. But now, as an artist, as many artists know, what's your paying gig? So I'm like, if I'm going to be an artist, the only thing that followed that seemed to be right behind that was being an educator. And I took this practicum class where I'm teaching in the city. I'm like a junior now, and it's for people who hadn't gotten their GEDs. Great professor, he's no longer with us either, by the name of Darden, Dr. Darden, said, who wants to volunteer? He said, hey, these people are some tough folks, so you can't go in and BS them and, you know, treat them like they stupid and stuff. And I'm like, who would do that, first of all?
Right.
And so he asked for volunteers. Now, this was a class of about 25 or 30. And I tell you, Chris, only 4 of us volunteered for that.
Yep.
And I was angry. I was like, hey, all you all are going to go and do these nice, cushy jobs in suburbia, where as soon as you walk through the door, you don't have to do much. But I'm like, I want to go somewhere where you do some teaching. So I went to this place. I'm green as all outdoors. And Chris, my mother, who's no longer with me, my sister's still alive, they were sitting in the class. And we were both shocked. We were all shocked because they didn't know I was teaching the class and I didn't know they were in it.
Wow.
And, from that experience, I didn't teach them because they said, don't teach something relative or something. But I tell you, Chris, man, I felt so fulfilled. I'm like, boy, this is giving back, isn't it? This is what it feels like, whether you make a lot of money or not. Brother, I felt 20 feet tall. I'm like, for my mother and sister, after all these years, want to get a GED, I'm saying something's right about this. So, the poet and teacher just got concreted.
Wow.
And that's what graduating from, and then let me tell you something. The Kansas City Public School District has spawned a lot of strong people. It really bothers me when people want to put down the district. You got, okay, I'm gonna toot my horn now here, Chris.
Okay.
Got a couple of my former students, Brandon Ellington,
yep,
city councilman,
yep,
quiet. Now he's like that guy taking names, right?
I hear you. I follow him. I've seen him doing his work. I've heard him speak. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Oh yeah. And he used to be really quiet kid.
He's from Paseo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
representing.
And all these kids now, they were really quiet people. And you may have heard of Henry Wash at High Aspirations. Another one of those kids, I used to see myself and all these kids, and Henry, was not about going to class a lot. He'll tell you that. And so I used to just pull him into my class. And after a while, the teacher was like, yeah, you can just keep in your class, Stan. Well, this kid just went on to get an MBA at UMKC, got to know Mr. Block himself, and he started this program, High Aspirations for Young Men in the inner city, right? So and then I got another kid named Rob Taylor. He calls himself Rob is a Poet. He's put out CDs of rap and hip hop. He's got a book out.
Yep.
First time book just came out called Hip Hop Was My Father.
Nice. That's a great title.
Right. So, and all of them can tell you stories about coming up and, all the obstacles and stuff. And then if I kept going, I'd really just keep talking about a whole bunch of them. But I'm really proud of those guys. And then I got to throw in a young lady now because
all right, that's only fair. That's only fair.
That's right. Shalonda Jones, who is now she's beating me, Chris. She's now Dr. Shalonda Jones.
Oh yeah.
Of education, right?
It feels good, doesn't it? I know some of my students have doctorates now as well.
Man, is that fantastic?
It's fantastic. Chelsea Potts is the dean of students at Penn Valley. I talked to her just the other day.
Wow.
On this interview, and she told me the story of Brother Naves, Mr. Naves, who you probably have known at Paseo for a brief time. How he really helped her think about her future. She had a really low GPA as a senior. We talked
Yeah.
about how that wasn't exactly correct as predicting your future. Now, was it? And she's finishing her dissertation like in a month from now. And
Wow.
talk about beating you. Yeah, I had that feeling of there she is in her very nice office in her business suit and her very nice desk. I'm like that's exactly what we want, though, right?
That's what we want.
That's what we want. Yeah.
Man, let me tell you, Chris, I always tell people that they think I'm not being genuine, or they just think you're being complimentary. Man, you can't pay us enough
No, it's the
for
best
what
feeling.
that feels like.
Yes, I
You
totally
really can't pay anybody enough.
no.
Do we want more pay as educators? Sure we do. All my
Yeah, that'd be
educators
great
buddy
too.
out there, yeah. But doggone it, there's not enough pay. That feeling, brother,
Yeah.
I mean, makes you sleep like a baby at night.
Yeah. And
Tell
to
me.
tell you, these last few interviews I've been doing have been mostly educators. So we're kind of trending as far as what kind of interviews I'm getting from people. And
Yeah.
I know why, because we need educators, right? Like we got to get that message across to young people, and we got to make it sound like it's a desirable profession. So there's some people actively recruiting in our area, right? We need more representation in the classroom. We need, when you go to teacher events, you see largely younger white women going into the field more and more, and not so much everyone else. So, I mean, I'll tell you, I wasn't always in classes with other guys myself, going through the School of Education in an English department, right? You're
Right.
primarily not there with other guys, but so it's really special to connect with educators who are also guys, and to keep this passion alive that we do go into this profession, and we need to be in this profession as much as everyone else.
That's
So
right.
I
Well,
love you saying that, and I appreciate feeling that love for male educators, feeling that love for all educators right now.
Yeah.
If you're listening, like, thank you for pursuing that craft, and then let's go, young people, come on board.
And let me give you a shout out, Chris. Let me tell you, you did some amazing work at Purcell with writing students. I know, we see them in the community. They're still writing.
They're still going.
They're publishing books.
They got their own
They
shows.
might have an 8-hour job, but
Yeah.
their passion is what they say we put into them.
Yeah, and there's events and organizations.
Oh man.
And non-for-profits, and yeah, it's been so fun to follow up. Two performers competed against each other from my class with 10 years difference. Unique battle theory down at Vine, and I didn't get a chance to go, but to know that I'd taught long enough to have a 10-year difference between two of my students, and then have them call each other out to battle, like, man, that is so real. So
I remember Unique. Remember he came out to a workshop at Avila with your class.
Yeah.
And he blew the roof off the place then.
Absolutely.
So,
people want to write. How do I write like that? How do I learn how to do those kind of things? That sounds so much fun, and I want to do that. The second they met him, and I can admit that I didn't really turn him on to much other than a couple people here and there, a couple poets, a couple of websites. Introduced.
No. Let me tell you something.
I don't know.
Look, you gotta have somebody. You gotta have somebody to put you there.
Yeah, no, but I would never take credit for anybody's growth.
I don't either. I do. See, I'm turning the tables on you because I say the same thing. But here's what my students will do. Just what I do. I told you about Miss Gail. Every time I start heaping praise on her, she's like, "No, you came with it already." I'm like, "No, Miss Gail, I didn't come with nothing."
It's in there. I really truly believe that.
It may be in there, but it's got to be that person. Because look, I'm Pollyannish too, Chris, because I'm like, everybody got something to contribute.
Yeah.
That's positive, and I believe that.
Me too.
But man, it takes that one mentor that's not this Svengali, this magic person, just somebody to say, "Hey, I believe you. I believe in you. I think you got it." Look, here's something. Here's an example I always use. I had this class of creative kids, and they were really like, because a bunch of stuff was happening to them. Street stuff, family stuff. And one day I just had it with them. I said, "What's the matter with this picture, y'all?" I said, how is it? Do y'all hear what you're saying? Mr. Banks, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm not good enough for this. It's like, what's the matter with this picture? I'm the one arguing for you all. I would think y'all would be arguing for yourselves, but I'm arguing for you. I'm like, and then they thought, yeah, I'm arguing against myself, ain't I?
Yep.
And I'm like, they got it. They got it with just that. I'm like, something wrong with this picture.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm gonna give you, because I'm like this with teachers. Please don't put your kids down. Right? And if you gotta have that harsh talk, take them one-on-one and have the harsh talk. And the first thing I say is, I'm pulling for you. What's going on with you? That's what I tell them, and it just throws them off right away. You okay? I thought you would bring me out here to ream me and tell me I'm stupid and I can't do it. I'm like, I'm pulling for you. What's the matter?
Yeah, I hear you.
And I'm telling you, Chris, that works across the board. I don't care what kind. I don't care if you got the gangster students. I don't care if you got the ones that just seem like they don't give it. You know, give a darn. Gotta keep it.
Exactly. Public
but
teaching.
That makes them think about, okay, so you're not bringing me out here just to read me, huh?
Absolutely.
So,
all right, so you heard it here, students. You're even getting some strategies for when you go into this career path from the great Stan. And we could talk to you forever. I know I could, and I have in the past. I reminiscing on all the things I've learned from you and conferences I've been to where you presented and poems I've heard you do. So let's do this. We got to go out with like one thing. What's something you think young people need to hear these days? This is a different kind of these days. Every time I ask this question, it seems like there's a new context or a new deep struggle going on in our world, both individually or privately or in a group or however, but we are all in this together right now. What do you think young people need to hear? Let's say they're going to graduate this year, coming out that experience. What do you think they need to know the most?
Well, that's a heavy question.
Yeah, just solve the world in one or two sentences.
Well, one of the things, because I've been presented with this kind of question, and I just say your life is in front of you big time. This is like, square one of 1 million, right? This is square one of 1 million, man. Your life and the things that you're going to do, the experiences you're going to have is coming. We've had this, I think COVID-19 made us all go inside in a lot of ways. And if you had some issues internally and you didn't have anybody to debrief with, that became a problem, right? So I always say, find people who won't BS you, who will tell you the truth, and you'll know when people talk to you if they care about you. So just know that no stumble means you're down, no failure means you're out, no disappointment means there's not good stuff coming. You just got to keep on pushing. And I'm telling you, if I start telling you my story, I have you on the floor prostrate crying. But I'm here to tell you the good news, that there's good stuff coming for you. You got to keep your eyes on the prize. Don't let somebody take you in other places you don't want to go. So that, I'll make it brief. That's, me, I keep going on and on, but it's like, that's part of what I would tell them.
Fantastic.
And keep reinforcing that to them.
Fantastic. And that's real, y'all, because let me tell you, I know, and I've heard Stan tell groups that before. I've heard him represent some of his story from the past. I've heard it through his poetry. So if you want to find out more about Stan Banks and his poetry, you can check him out online. He's got a couple of really good books out there. Blue Beat Syncopation has kind of been named. What was the most recent?
It was the summer suggested books by the Kansas City Star, by the public library. Awesome. And had that nice little feature article in the art section.
Yeah. I saw that.
24th, something like that.
I saw that. It's so fun to read and see people you know and know they're getting their due credit and their due notice. And so if you're listening, check out Stan's work. Check out some readings. Both he and his wife are around town doing poetry an awful lot. Oh, now it's going to be even darker. I think that's the note. They're like closing me out of this room. So,
Chris, book club, the Kansas City Star Book Club is going to be featuring my book on Sunday, the 22nd at 3 o'clock on a Zoom situation, a Zoom meeting. So I think you could, if you're interested, I'm sure they'll be putting out some more stuff. So
okay, very good. Well, Kansas City, you've had a treat today listening to the great wisdom and thoughts and story of Stanley Banks. And if you're interested in being on this show or you'd like to reach out to me and find out more about these episodes, please do. My name's Chris Odam and I work for KC Public Schools. So thank you so much, Stan. It's been wonderful catching up with you. And
my pleasure, brother.
I mean it for real. I used to look forward to those conferences so much that I'd bring students, but I would recharge my creative senses by going and listening to. At one time, you had an amazing panel at Avila, just amazing amount, 3 or 4 teachers at once. And now Mary Frances Wagner is the poet laureate of our city. It's really, really cool. So appreciate you so much. Always be a poetry lover. And Kansas City, I hope you're having a great day. We'll see you soon.